The first thing I heard was a steady beeping, rhythmic and too loud. The second was the soft shuffle of someone standing beside me, breathing in that careful way people do when they're scared to move too fast. My eyes blinked open to a world bathed in white. White lights, white walls, white sheets. A hospital. My throat was dry, my tongue heavy. Everything hurt in a dull, distant way, like my body had been sleeping longer than it should have. My head throbbed. I tried to speak, but it came out as a rasp. The figure beside me leaned in.
Hey.
You're awake. The voice was familiar. Too familiar. Sharp, clipped, full of that same quiet sarcasm I'd memorized years ago. My gaze focused. And I saw her.
No.
No fucking way. Sloane. Her name scratched out of my throat like it didn't belong there. Her dark eyes widened. You remember me. Unfortunately, I croaked. She exhaled a breath I didn't understand, her shoulders relaxing in a way that made me uneasy. Welcome back, Ava. What the hell are you doing here? That's complicated. I stared at her. Her hair was longer than I remembered, her face softer. But it was her. Sloane fucking Carter. The same girl who humiliated me in front of the entire debate team. The same girl who turned every group project into a battlefield. My sworn rival. My nemesis. How long have I been out? I asked. 6 weeks. Jesus. Car accident. You were hit crossing the street outside your building. My chest tightened. Images flashed, headlights, rain, pain, and then nothing. And you've been here. Why? Her eyes flicked away. You should probably rest. Sloane. You had memory loss. They didn't know how bad it would be. Why are you here? Because I'm your... She cut herself off. My pulse spiked. You're what? If you enjoyed this content and want to support the channel in a special way, try clicking the thanks button below. It's the one with the heart and $sign icon. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution to the channel, which helps me keep creating awesome videos for you.
She sighed.
Sat down on the edge of the bed. Because I'm your wife. I laughed. Or tried to. It came out as a harsh, cracked sound. Try again. I'm serious. You expect me to believe that I married you? You, of all people? Apparently, this is a joke. This is one of your pranks. Very funny. It's not a joke, Ava. There's no way I would ever marry you. Well, she said, her voice tight. You did. 2 years ago. In Vegas. My stomach flipped. That's insane. That never happened. You were drunk. We both were. But we made it legal. Signed the papers and everything. So, what? We got it annulled, right? No, what? We never filed the annulment. We forgot. Or maybe we didn't want to. I don't know. We just stayed married. This doesn't make sense. You don't remember anything?
No.
Not after graduation. Her jaw tightened. A lot's happened since then. Clearly. She looked like she wanted to say more, but the door opened and a nurse walked in, cheerful and oblivious. Well, look who's awake. Welcome back, sweetheart. I stared at Sloane. She stared back. The nurse checked my vitals, asked a few questions, scribbled something on a chart. I barely heard her. When she left, I turned to Sloane again. Start talking. It's a long story. I've got time. She rubbed her hands together, restless. After college, you moved to New York. I stayed in Boston. We didn't talk for a while. But then we ran into each other at a conference. We fought. Then we drank. Then we kissed. One thing led to another, and we woke up married. That sounds fake. I thought so too. But you didn't want to undo it. You said you liked the idea of rewriting our story. Bullshit. You called it fate. I would never. Apparently you did. I stared at her, my heart pounding. Why didn't we divorce? We moved in together. It just worked. Somehow. We still fought, constantly. But there was something else, too. Chemistry. Or maybe insanity. You never really explained it. We were messy and complicated and never stopped arguing. But we didn't stop loving each other either. You're lying. I'm not. Prove it. She stood, walked to her purse, pulled out her phone, scrolled, turned the screen to me. Photos. Dozens. Hundreds.
Us at the beach.
Us in the kitchen. Us kissing. Laughing. Wrapped in each other like we didn't know how to be apart. My throat tightened. My eyes burned. I don't remember any of this. I know. And we were happy as two stubborn assholes can be. So, what happens now? That's up to you. What do you want? Her eyes searched mine. I want you to remember. But if you can't, I want you to fall in love with me again. My breath caught. Sloan, I know. You hate me. You always have. I did. In college. And now. I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. But her hand reached out and touched mine gently, like we weren't enemies, like we'd never been. And for the first time in 6 weeks, my heart beat like it remembered something I didn't. They moved me out of the ICU the next morning. New room, bigger window, slightly better view, same unsettling silence that wrapped around everything like the aftermath of a storm. I sat in the hospital bed, propped up by pillows, staring at the wedding band on my left hand like it might start whispering answers. Sloan had left the night before after our too personal conversation. I hadn't asked her to stay. She hadn't offered. But I hadn't stopped thinking about her since. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw flashes of her face. Not how I remembered her in college, sharp-tongued, competitive, infuriating, but softer, like the version I'd glimpsed when she showed me those photos. It was impossible. We'd hated each other. We were oil and water, fire and gasoline. But the woman in those pictures? The woman who kissed me in a grocery aisle, who held me in a snowstorm, who wore my sweatshirt and smiled at me like she knew every part of me. That wasn't a stranger. That was a lover.
A wife.
You're frowning again, a voice said from the doorway. I looked up. Sloan leaned against the frame, holding 2 coffees and a bag that smelled suspiciously like muffins. Are you stalking me?
I asked.
Married people don't stalk each other. It's called being attentive. I raised an eyebrow. You've been attentive for someone I don't even remember. She stepped inside and handed me a cup. Hazelnut. No sugar, 2 creams. It was your favorite. Was. I don't know if it still is. You could have just asked. You would have said black coffee out of spite. I snorted, despite myself. She set the muffin bag on the table and pulled the chair closer to the bed. They said you might be released by the end of the week.
Great.
Then what? Then we go home. Home. She nodded. Our apartment. I sipped the coffee, watching her carefully. Do we have a cat or something? You're allergic. Dog. You said I didn't deserve one until I learned to make time for walks. Sounds about right. We have plants. You named them all after people you hate. I blinked. Seriously? There's a pothose named Natalie and a cactus named Professor Renz. I covered my mouth to hide the laugh. Okay, that's a little funny. She leaned back, watching me. Do you want to see the apartment? I don't know. It might help. It might hurt. She nodded.
Yeah.
It might. We sat in silence for a while. Then I asked, what were we like? You and me?
Yeah.
She hesitated.
Loud.
Passionate.
Messy.
You made me breakfast every Saturday and then refused to talk to me if I touched your playlist. We fought over laundry, over politics, over what color the bathroom should be. But we also danced in the kitchen. A lot. You hated when I worked late. I hated when you forgot to eat. You used to tuck your feet under my legs when we watched movies, and whenever you were upset, you'd ask me to brush your hair. We weren't perfect, but we were real. My throat felt tight. Did I love you? Her voice was a whisper. Yes. Did you love me? I never stopped. My eyes burned. Why didn't you tell me sooner? You'd just woken up. You were scared. I didn't want to make it worse. It's already worse. I feel like I'm looking at my own life through glass. Then let me help you remember it.
Why?
So you can make me fall for you again? No, she said, standing slowly. Because you're already doing it, and it scares the hell out of me. She left without another word, and I stared at the empty chair for a long time, wondering how the girl I hated most had become the one person I couldn't stop craving. The first step into the apartment felt like crossing into someone else's life. Mine, apparently.
Ours.
But not one I recognized. The elevator ride up had been silent. Sloane stood beside me, arms crossed, jaw tense, her eyes flicking to me every few seconds like she didn't know what version of me she was bringing home. I didn't know either. The door clicked open. She stepped inside first, then held it open for me, her voice softer than I remembered it ever being. Welcome home. The word hit me like a bruise. Home. As if I hadn't just spent the last few weeks in a sterile hospital bed trying to remember what kind of toothpaste I liked. But I walked in anyway. The space was beautiful. Not in a cold, minimalist, magazine way, but lived in. The couch had a blanket tossed over the back. The dining table was covered in books and mail and a single candle that had burned halfway down. The walls were painted a warm, soft gray, with framed photos hung in a messy, charming pattern. And in the middle of them all, us. Dozens of us.
Kissing.
Laughing. Wrapped in each other's arms. On a beach. At some wedding. At what looked like a very messy brunch. Both of us in pajamas, mid-laugh. Powdered sugar on her cheek. My heart clenched. You decorated this? I asked. We both did. I walked slowly through the living room, fingers grazing the back of the couch, the edge of a photo frame. It's nice. You called it our little mess. It doesn't feel messy. That's because you're not the one who leaves coffee mugs everywhere. Still sounds like you. She almost smiled. The bedroom's through there. Bathroom on the right. Kitchen's technically open concept, but you hated how it was laid out. Why? Something about not enough counter space and the fridge being in the wrong dimension. That tracks. I walked down the hallway and stopped in the doorway of what was clearly our bedroom. Big window. Soft sheets. A plant in the corner. Tall and green and very much alive. That's Ren's, Sloane said, appearing behind me. The cactus. He's intimidating. You said he had angry energy. I stepped inside, heart hammering. The bed was made. 2 pillows. 2 robes hanging on the back of the door. Her scent was everywhere, soft, warm, familiar in a way I didn't want to admit. I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to breathe through the sudden pressure in my chest. This was ours. It still is. You sleep here alone now. I haven't slept here much at all since the accident. I looked at her. She leaned against the doorway, arms still crossed, trying not to look like she was waiting for something. Did we fight a lot? Yes.
About what?
Everything. You're stubborn. I'm worse. You like things clean. I like them chaotic. You overthink everything. I pretend nothing bothers me. Sounds toxic. It wasn't. Not always. We got better. I stood, walked slowly around the room, touching books, pulling open drawers. Everything felt so normal, so lived in. I opened the closet and froze. There were clothes. Hers and mine. Tangled, mixed. Shoes on the floor. A hoodie that looked suspiciously like one I'd worn in a few photos. I reached out and touched the fabric. My chest squeezed. I don't remember falling in love with you, I said quietly. I know, but I'm starting to believe I did. She didn't say anything. I turned to look at her. Her face was unreadable. You make me feel things I can't explain, and I don't know if it's memory or muscle. What do you mean? Like my body remembers you even if my brain doesn't. Her breath hitched. She stepped closer. Do you want me to stop being here? No. Do you want space? No. Then what do you want, Ava? I looked at her, really looked at her, and something in me cracked. I crossed the room in 3 steps and kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't planned. It was a kiss that said I'm scared, and I'm confused, and I'm trying. Her mouth met mine like she'd been waiting for it, her hands sliding into my hair, her body pressing against mine. I gasped when her fingers found my waist, her lips moving with too much familiarity for someone I didn't remember kissing. But my body remembered. My hands knew where to grip. My hips knew how to move against hers. I moaned into her mouth, and she pulled back, breathing hard. Ava, don't stop. You don't remember me. But I feel you. This isn't just sex. I know. Then tell me what this is. It's something I want. Her forehead rested against mine. You're not playing with me? I don't even know the rules anymore. Then let me remind you. She kissed me again, slower this time, more reverent. Her hand slid under my shirt, grazing bare skin. I let out a soft sound, caught between fear and need.
She stopped.
We don't have to do this now. But I want to. Then I need you to be sure. I'm not sure of anything except this. We kissed again, deeper, harder. But when she started to tug my shirt over my head, I paused. Wait. She stopped instantly. Too much.
No.
Just not yet. She nodded, breathing hard. Okay. We stood there, pressed together, lips swollen, eyes wild. I should shower, I whispered. Want me to stay? Yes. She smiled just a little. Then I will. That night, I lay in her arms for the first time since I woke up. And even though I didn't remember the life we had, I felt something settle inside me. Something right. Something real. And for the first time in weeks, I let myself believe that maybe this wasn't the end of a story. Maybe it was the beginning. I dreamed of her that night. Not the version I'd just started getting used to, the softer, quieter woman who brought me hazelnut coffee and waited while I remembered how to breathe around her.
No.
This was the Sloane I remembered. College Sloane. Hair tied back in a sharp ponytail, blazer too perfect, voice too loud. The girl who mocked my thesis in front of an entire seminar. Who smiled when she beat me at anything. Who never looked at me with softness. Except in the dream, she did. I was sitting in the old library, same spot I always claimed, and she walked up with that smirk I used to hate. But when she reached me, her eyes were different. Warmer. And she leaned down and kissed me like she'd been waiting for years. I woke up with my heart pounding and her arm around my waist. I didn't move, just stared at the ceiling and let the weight of everything crush down on me. My brain still didn't remember. But my body, my heart, they were starting to betray me in ways I couldn't ignore. She stirred behind me, her breath warm against the back of my neck. You okay? Yeah, I whispered. Just thinking. That's dangerous. So you keep saying. She pressed a kiss to my shoulder. It wasn't sexual. It wasn't even teasing. It was gentle, thoughtful, intimate. And it undid something in me I didn't know was still tightly wound. We got up late. She let me wander the apartment again. Let me open drawers and ask stupid questions. She made breakfast while I tried to remember how I used to like my eggs. I burned the toast. She laughed and called me a menace. I rolled my eyes and tried not to stare at her mouth. By midday, I needed air. She offered to take me to the park. You said it always helped you think, she added, especially when your brain got too loud. And what did you do when your brain got too loud? I usually picked a fight with you. Sounds about right. She glanced over as she drove. You always won. That can't be true. It is. You were terrifying when you were passionate. The park was quiet. We sat on a bench by the water. The air smelled like early fall, crisp, golden, full of something that felt like change. She didn't touch me, didn't rush me, just sat there, watching the ripples on the surface. Do you regret it? I asked. What? All of this? No, even the coma? Especially not that. It scared the shit out of me, but it made me realize how fragile everything is, how fast it can all go away, and how I never really said what I needed to. Like what? Like how much I loved you, like how sorry I was for every time I pretended I didn't. I swallowed. You hurt me a lot in college. I know. You embarrassed me. Constantly. I know. So why did I say yes? Because I stopped hiding how I felt. And because deep down, you always knew we were just two sides of the same fire. And now I'm still in love with you. And I'm terrified you'll never be able to feel that again. I feel something, I admitted. When you touch me, when you look at me, it's not memory, it's instinct. Her hand inched closer on the bench. That's enough for now. That night, she didn't sleep in the bed with me. She offered the couch, said I might want space. And I hated how much I missed her. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, thinking about that damn kiss in the library that never happened. Or maybe it did. Maybe it was a memory. A real one. I got up around midnight, walked down the hallway, found her curled under a blanket, her hair a mess, her face turned toward the back of the couch. I stood there for a long time, just watching her breathe. Then I whispered, "Sloan?" She stirred, blinked up at me. "What's wrong?" "I don't want space." "You sure?" "I want you to hold me." She didn't ask again. She just pulled back the blanket and let me climb in. Her arms wrapped around me like they'd never forgotten how. And when I finally fell asleep, her heartbeat was the only thing that felt real. I woke up with my head on her chest, her fingers softly trailing up and down my spine in a rhythm so slow, so familiar, that it made my whole body ache. Not with pain, with want, with the terrifying realization that maybe I didn't need the memories to remember her. I just needed her touch. Neither of us said anything for a long time. The room was quiet, filled only by the sounds of morning creeping in through the half-open window and the soft beat of her heart under my cheek. I thought about pulling away, about creating distance, but my body refused. Instead, I tightened my arm around her waist and let my eyes flutter closed again. "Do you always sleep like that?" she finally asked, voice husky with sleep. "Like what?" "All over me." "You saying I'm clingy?" "I'm saying you've always used me as your favorite pillow." "Can you blame me?" I lifted my head to look at her. She was smiling, but her eyes were serious. "You used to say I made you feel safe." I swallowed. "I don't remember saying that." "That's okay. You'll say it again eventually." "You sound so sure." "Because I'm willing to wait." That did something to me. I sat up slowly, the sheet falling to my waist, my breath catching when I noticed how close her hand was to bare skin. She didn't look away. Neither did I. "You're being too perfect," I whispered. "It's suspicious." "I'm not perfect. I'm trying." "You're succeeding too much. It's the first time I've had a second chance at something that mattered." "You didn't tell me you loved me right away, did you?"
No.
"It took a while. We were already married when we said it." "Wait, seriously?" She smiled, a little sheepishly. "You said it first." I blinked. "That doesn't sound like me." "You were drunk, but sincere." "Sounds more like me." "You told me I annoyed you more than anyone else, but you wanted to wake up next to me for the rest of your life anyway." I stared at her. "I really said that?" "Word for word." I laughed, but it felt shaky.
Wow.
"Romantic." "I cried when you said it. That shut me up." She looked at me like she wanted to say more, but her phone buzzed on the nightstand and broke the moment. She glanced at the screen. "I need to stop by the gallery. Right now. Just for a couple hours. Can I trust you to stay out of trouble?" "Define trouble." She rolled her eyes, then leaned in and pressed a soft kiss to my temple. "There's coffee in the kitchen. Don't burn anything." No promises. When she left, the apartment felt too quiet. I wandered through it again, slower this time, letting my fingers trail along shelves and picture frames and doorways. I stopped in the hallway when I noticed a drawer slightly open. Inside were letters.
Dozens of them.
All addressed to me. I pulled one out, unfolded it with shaking hands. "Ava, I don't know if you'll ever read this, but I need to say it somewhere. Every day you don't wake up, I wonder if the last thing I ever said to you was enough. I wonder if I'll ever hear you laugh again, or complain about how I never fold the towels right. I miss you. I miss fighting with you. I miss loving you.
Come back to me. Please."
My vision blurred. I dropped the letter, my hands trembling as I reached for another, then another. Each one raw.
Desperate.
Filled with a kind of vulnerability I didn't know Sloan was capable of. She'd written me letters. Every single day. I didn't even know I was crying until I heard the door open again. I turned, eyes red, letter in my hand.
She froze when she saw me.
You weren't supposed to find those yet. You wrote me letters. You weren't waking up. I didn't know what else to do. Why didn't you tell me? Because you already didn't remember me. I didn't want to scare you away. You poured your heart into these. Every day. Because I didn't know how else to hold on to you. I crossed the room and kissed her. Hard. No warning. No permission. She kissed me back instantly, her arms wrapping around me like she'd been waiting for me to make this move. I pulled her closer, kneading her mouth, her hands, her warmth. We stumbled backward until my back hit the hallway wall, her body pressed flush against mine. Her lips moved to my neck, my shoulder, her breath hot against my skin. Ava, she whispered. Are you sure? I nodded, breathless. I don't remember everything, but I remember this.
You. Me.
This feeling. She kissed me again, deeper, slower, her hands sliding under my shirt with a reverence that made my knees weak. We didn't make it to the bedroom. The floor was hard. The kisses were soft. And every inch of her that touched me felt like something I'd always known. When it was over, we lay tangled in the hallway, limbs intertwined, hearts racing. She brushed hair from my face and looked at me like she still couldn't believe I was real. You're coming back to me, she whispered. One piece at a time. I think I never really left, I whispered back. And when I looked at her then, I didn't just feel it, I knew. I loved her. Even if I couldn't remember why. I loved her anyway. The hallway floor wasn't comfortable, but wrapped in her arms, pressed against her skin, I didn't care. Her breath was still uneven, matching the erratic rhythm of mine, her fingers tracing lazy circles on my bare back like she couldn't stop touching me even if she tried. I didn't want her to. I didn't want any of it to end. Her lips brushed my temple. You okay? Yeah, I whispered, then shifted slightly and winced. Maybe not physically. She laughed softly and tightened her hold.
Sorry.
We got a little carried away. You think? I tilted my head to look at her. Her hair was a mess, her cheeks flushed, and she was smiling in that quiet, stunned way that made her look younger.
Softer.
Beautiful. I cupped her face. That felt like more than just instinct. It was. So, what does this mean? She leaned in, kissed me gently. It means we stop pretending that memory is the only thing that matters. I don't care if you don't remember everything. What we have now is real. I closed my eyes, letting her words settle in the parts of me that were still raw. I didn't remember our wedding, our first kiss, our worst fight, but I remembered the way she looked at me when I was laughing. I remembered the sound of her voice when she said my name like it meant something. I remembered the way she made me feel like I belonged somewhere with someone for the first time in a long time. We eventually moved to the couch, still wrapped in each other, not quite ready to leave the cocoon we'd created. She pulled a blanket over us, kissed my shoulder, and whispered stories from the life we'd shared. You once got banned from a bar because you tried to lecture the bartender on the ethics of overpriced cocktails. Sounds like me. You also made me a playlist called I Hate You, But I Die For You. Also sounds like me. You said it was our love language. I turned to her. What's yours? Touch. Acts of service. Fighting. You're serious? You said you'd never loved anyone you didn't argue with at least once a week. Did we argue that much? Constantly. Do you miss it? Only when you're being agreeable. Careful. I can fix that. There she is. Her smile warmed every corner of my chest. But later, when she thought I was asleep, I heard her voice shift.
Softer.
Nervous. What if this doesn't last? I didn't move. Just listened. What if you wake up tomorrow and decide you want a different life? One where I'm not your wife. One where I'm just the girl you hated in college. I reached for her hand and laced our fingers together. Then I guess you'll have to make me fall in love with you all over again. She froze, then exhaled slowly. I think I'd like that. The next morning, I made her breakfast. Or tried to. I burned the toast again. She laughed and stole half my eggs and kissed my cheek like we hadn't just undone each other on the floor 24 hours ago. You're still wearing my hoodie, she said. You like it. I like you in it. You could just say you like me. I'm trying to ease into it. You're already in deep. I know. The day passed quietly.
Easy.
We walked to the bookstore down the street. She pointed out my favorite author. I didn't recognize the name, but I believed her. She bought me a copy of a book I supposedly made her read 5 times. When we got home, I curled up in her lap and read the first chapter out loud. Her hand stroked my thigh absent-mindedly. Her mouth brushed the top of my head. That night, I sat on the bed and asked, "Can I see our wedding photos?" She blinked. You sure? I want to know how happy we looked. She disappeared for a few minutes, then returned with a thick album, the leather cover worn at the edges. She sat beside me, opened it slowly, and there we were, laughing, dancing, drunk and glowing in a way that only people in love could. I stared at one photo in particular, her hand on my waist, my head thrown back in laughter, her lips pressed to my temple. You looked at me like you knew you'd never want anyone else, I whispered. I didn't. Do you still feel that way? She looked at me, voice steady. I never stopped. I leaned in, kissed her slow, deep, like a promise. Then let's make new memories. Ones I won't forget. And when she pushed me back onto the pillows, when she kissed every inch of me like I was something precious, I let her. I let her make me hers. Again. And this time, I wouldn't forget a thing. There was something sacred about the way she touched me now. No rush, no urgency, just slow reverence like her hands were rewriting every memory I'd lost. She made love to me like I was fragile and familiar all at once, like I was both the woman she'd known for years and someone she was meeting for the first time. And when we collapsed into each other afterward, skin to skin, heartbeat to heartbeat, she didn't let go. Not even when the room quieted. Not even when sleep tugged at the edges of her breath. I watched her drift off beside me, her features soft in the moonlight, and for the first time since waking from the coma, I didn't feel like a stranger to my own life. I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. When I woke the next morning, she was already up. I heard soft music from the kitchen, the sound of a pan clinking against the stove, and her voice humming along to something vaguely familiar. I wrapped myself in her robe. It smelled like her, warm and clean and devastating, and padded down the hall. She turned when she heard me, eyes lighting up in a way that made something flutter behind my ribs. Morning, Sleeping Beauty. You cook now. I've been trying. You once told me my eggs were a crime against nature. They were. That doesn't mean I didn't appreciate the effort. You said I only got better because you refused to eat anything that wasn't seasoned properly. So, I taught you through spite. Exactly. She set a plate in front of me, scrambled eggs, toast, and fruit that was slightly too soft but clearly chosen with care.
Be honest, she said.
How'd I do? I took a bite, exaggerated my chewing, then grinned. Passable. I'll take it. I studied her across the table. Dear friends know? About what?
Us.
The coma. That I don't remember everything. They know the basics. That you're recovering. That things are complicated. And do they know we're trying again? Her expression shifted. I haven't told everyone. I didn't want to pressure you into anything. Or make it harder if I ran. Yeah. I reached across the table and took her hand. I'm not running. You sure? I don't know everything. But I know I want this. I want you. Her eyes softened. Then that's all I need. Later, we went for a walk. She took me to the coffee shop down the street, introduced me to the barista, who apparently used to know our regular orders. I didn't remember her, but I smiled like I did, squeezing Sloane's hand when the girl behind the counter called us the couple with the weird mug rule. You hated drinking from anything too thin, Sloane explained as we stepped back onto the sidewalk. You said it made the coffee taste arrogant. Still does. We spent the rest of the day like that, rediscovering pieces of a life I couldn't fully remember, but was starting to crave again. Every corner of our neighborhood, was filled with some version of us. A bookstore where we used to spend rainy Sundays. A bench where she told me she wanted to renew our vows one day. A tiny diner where we apparently once got caught making out in a booth by her boss. It was overwhelming, beautiful, intense. I was exhausted by the time we got home, but it was the kind of tired that came from living, not surviving. That night, curled against her in bed, I asked the question that had been growing inside me all day. What happens when the rest of it comes back? What do you mean? What if I remember something that changes how I feel? What if I remember something bad?
She didn't hesitate.
Then we face it. Together. You really believe that? I married you, Eva.
Twice.
Once by accident. The second time on purpose. I'll keep doing it, even if you forget me 100 more times. I buried my face in her neck, overwhelmed by the quiet, steady certainty in her voice. You're too good to be true. You're just finally seeing the version of me you made. I didn't make you. You did. You forced me to be better, more patient, more honest. You never let me get away with my bullshit. You made me want to be the kind of person who deserved you. My chest ached. I kissed her shoulder,
Her jaw.
her mouth, and when I whispered her name between kisses, I felt her shiver against me like it was the first time. What if I never remember everything? I asked. Then I'll just have to help you fall in love with me again. Every day. And with her hands on my skin and her heart in her eyes, I realized she already was. The first full memory came back like a flash fire, sudden, vivid, and hot enough to burn. I was in the shower, steam curling around my body, eyes closed as the water poured over me, when it hit.
A night.
Our first night. Not the first time we kissed. Not the first time we argued. But the night we finally stopped pretending we hated each other. It was in a hotel room during a conference. We'd fought all day, sharp words, tighter clothes, long glares across panel tables. And then we'd found ourselves in the elevator alone, and she pinned me against the wall with a kiss so full of rage and hunger that I'd gasped into her mouth. I remembered the way she pulled my blazer off like she hated how good it looked on me. I remembered shoving her onto the bed and telling her to shut up before she said something that made me like her. I remembered the way we didn't sleep at all that night. I dropped to my knees in the shower, chest heaving, heart pounding. It wasn't just the sex. It was the clarity. The moment I'd realized we weren't just enemies. We were obsessed with each other. Addicted. I sat on the cold tiles until the water ran lukewarm and my skin was raw. When I finally came out, Sloane was in the kitchen, pouring wine, barefoot and soft in a worn t-shirt I didn't recognize but somehow knew I'd bought for her. She turned, smiled.
Hey.
I was just about to. I walked up to her, cupped her face, and kissed her like I had in that elevator. Her body stiffened in surprise, then melted into me. Her hands gripped my waist. Her mouth opened against mine with a soft sound that made everything inside me ache. When we pulled apart, her eyes searched mine. You remembered something. Our first night. Her breath caught. The hotel? I nodded. You said I kissed like I wanted to win. You did. And you still do. I think I fell in love with you that night. She looked stunned. You threw a shoe at me the next morning. Because you left before I could say it. Her fingers dug into my hips. Why didn't you tell me? Because you were still Sloane Carter. And I was still Ava Reyes. And we were still pretending we couldn't stand each other. We were so full of shit. Still are. Speak for yourself. I leaned in, brushed my lips against her ear. If I kiss you like I hate you again, will you stop pretending it doesn't undo you? No promises. I kissed her again, harder, dirtier. We didn't make it to the bedroom. She lifted me onto the kitchen counter, her mouth hot and familiar on my neck, my thighs wrapped tight around her waist. She tore my shirt open like she'd done that first night. I pushed her shorts down with shaking hands. It wasn't soft. It wasn't romantic. It was history reclaiming itself. It was memory made flesh. After, we lay sprawled on the rug, breathless and tangled, her head on my chest. You okay? She asked softly. Better than okay. You looked shaken when you came out of the shower. because it hit me all at once that we didn't just fall into this. We fought our way into it. We did. And I don't want to forget any of it ever again. She kissed my shoulder. You're coming back to me piece by piece. You never really lost me. There's something else, she said, voice careful. I didn't tell you before, because I didn't know if you'd want to hear it. I sat up slightly. What is it? Your family. Your parents. They didn't know about us. They still don't. I blinked. Seriously? You said it wasn't the right time. That they'd never understand. You didn't want to deal with the fallout while we were still figuring ourselves out. So you let them believe I was single? They think I'm your roommate. Or business partner. Depends on the day. I stared at her. And you went along with it? Because I loved you. Because I didn't want to push you. But I can't pretend forever, Ava. I can't keep being your secret. You're not. Aren't I? Not anymore. You're sure? I kissed her again, slow and deliberate. Let's go see them.
What?
Let's tell them everything. That I married the girl I hated in college. That she turned out to be the love of my life. That I lost my memories and still found my way back to her. Her eyes filled, but she smiled. Okay, let's do it. And if they freak out, then they'll see what I see when I look at you. What's that? My whole damn future. That night, she held me like she'd never let go again. And for the first time, I believed her. I had imagined telling my parents about Sloane dozens of times. Usually in the middle of the night. Usually with a glass of wine in my hand and my pulse hammering in my throat. In most versions, it ended with shouting. In the worst ones, it ended with silence. I never imagined doing it with her hand in mine. I never imagined doing it after Coma. After rediscovering the life we built. After remembering how it started, not as a mistake, but as the only decision I'd ever made that was completely mine. They're going to hate me, Sloane said quietly as we pulled up in front of my parents' house.
They're not, I said.
They might, but they'll hear me, and they'll see you. And I think maybe, for once, they'll finally understand. And if they don't, then we leave. And we go home. Together. She looked at me. You'd walk away from them? I already did.
They just don't know it yet.
My parents were stiff from the start. My mother smiled too wide. My father barely looked up from his newspaper. Sloane reached out to shake their hands. My mother blinked. My father didn't move. Nice to meet you, she said calmly. Thank you for having me. I sat down beside her, my hand on her thigh under the table, grounding us both. We have something to tell you. My mother looked at me sharply. You're still recovering. Is it something urgent? It's something important. I looked at Sloane. She nodded. I turned back to them. We're married. Silence. Then my father's paper rustled. You're what? We've been married for 2 years. We eloped. It started unexpectedly, but we're in love. My mother stared at Sloane like she'd grown horns. You're married to a woman. Yes. And you didn't tell us. I wasn't ready. And that's on me, not her. My father stood. This is ridiculous. You expect us to believe you got married and forgot to mention it. I didn't forget. I was afraid. Of what? My mother demanded. That we'd judge you? That we wouldn't approve? Yes, I said plainly. That's exactly what I was afraid of. And now I don't care. My mother's face crumpled. My father turned away. Sloane sat still, her shoulders square, her eyes soft but unwavering. I love your daughter, she said. I have since the first time she called me insufferable in a lecture hall. She changed my life. She made me someone better. And even when she couldn't remember who I was, she still chose me. You took advantage of her, my father snapped. She didn't remember anything. I didn't. I cut in. But I do now. And what I remember is that I loved her before the accident. And I love her now. More even. This isn't how we raised you, my mother said, her voice trembling. No, I said. It's better. We left not long after that. No hugs. No goodbyes. Just the weight of truths they weren't ready to hear, and a silence I didn't bother to fill. I didn't cry in the car. Not until we got home. Sloane pulled me into her arms the second the door closed. I collapsed into her. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For what?" "That they don't see you the way I do." "They don't have to. You're the only one who matters now." "You sure?" I kissed her. More than ever. Days passed. She didn't ask again. Didn't push. But I could see it in her eyes. Every time I paused too long and thought or stared a little too hard at a photo on the wall, she was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Waiting for the past to come back and ruin what we'd rebuilt. And I hated that. So I started to show her. Every day. I made her breakfast and kissed her shoulder while she read emails. I pulled her into my lap while she tried to fold laundry and refused to let her go. I kissed her at red lights. I held her hand at the farmer's market. I told her she was beautiful when she was brushing her teeth and still had toothpaste on her chin. And at night, when she touched me like I was everything, I whispered her name like a prayer. One night, I pulled a small velvet box from my pocket and set it on the pillow between us.
She stared at it.
"What is this?" "A ring. We're already married. But I don't remember the first time I asked you to be mine. So I'm doing it again." Her breath caught. "Ava, I don't remember the day I fell in love with you the first time. But I remember the moment it happened again. And I want a life with you I'll never forget." She opened the box. Her hands shook. She laughed, then cried, then tackled me to the bed in one breathless motion. "Yes," she whispered against my mouth. "A million times yes." That night, we didn't just make love. We wrote vows with our bodies. And I knew, with a clarity I'd never known before the coma, that this wasn't a second chance. It was the real beginning. And this time, I'd remember every second of it. The ceremony was nothing like the first one. At least, that's what Sloane told me. I still didn't remember Vegas. The neon chapel. The barely legal officiant in a rhinestone suit. The bouquet we stole from a casino lobby. I didn't remember it. And maybe I never would. But this time I would remember everything. It was a cool spring evening, just warm enough that we didn't need jackets. We stood barefoot in the backyard of the little house we had fought over buying 3 times before finally calling it home. A handful of close friends sat in mismatched chairs under strings of lights we'd hung ourselves the night before. There were flowers everywhere, wild, unarranged, spilling over from every corner. I wore white, not a gown, not a dress, just something simple, comfortable. Her shirt was half unbuttoned. Her smile was everything. "You ready?" she whispered, brushing her fingers against mine before the music started. "I've been ready since the day you insulted my handwriting in political theory. You deserved it. It was illegible. And now it's yours. Always was." I squeezed her hand. The officiant started speaking, but I barely heard a word. All I saw was her. All I felt was her hand in mine, warm and steady. We'd written our vows separately. She insisted. Said we'd done enough scripting in the past. Said this time she wanted messy, raw, real. So when it was my turn, I looked her in the eyes and said, "I didn't remember the first time I loved you, but I remember the second. I remember your hands on my back when I woke up. I remember your voice breaking when you told me I married you. I remember falling for your steadiness, your softness, your stupid jokes, your horrible dancing. I remember loving you even when I didn't know why. And now I do, because you're my best decision, my loudest memory, and I don't want another day in this life that doesn't include you." Her eyes were glassy. She swallowed hard. "You once told me I was the most annoying person you'd ever met. And then you kissed me. And then you married me. And I spent 2 years wondering when I'd mess it up, and 6 weeks praying you'd remember why you didn't walk away. But now I know it was a memory that kept us together. It was choice. It was love. It was something so deep, not even trauma could shake it loose. And I want to choose you. Every morning, every argument, every storm. Even when you burn the toast. Especially then." We kissed before they said we could. Our friends clapped. Someone cried. Maybe both of us did. It didn't matter. What mattered was her arms around me, her smile against my mouth, her whisper against my skin. You're mine. Yours, I whispered back. The party was small.
Loud.
Ridiculous. Our playlist from college blasted through tiny speakers. We danced barefoot on the grass. Someone brought shots. Someone brought cake. Someone brought a puppy. We kept it. That night, we lay in bed, limbs tangled, skin sticky with sweat and frosting, and she ran her fingers down my arm like she was tracing every second we'd ever had. You think it'll always be this good? She asked. No, I said honestly, but I think we'll always find our way back to good. You scare me, she whispered. Why? Because I've never loved anyone like this. It's loud, and quiet, and overwhelming, and peaceful. It's everything. I kissed her shoulder. I hope I never forget again. And if you do? I rolled on top of her, smiled down at her. Then you better be ready to make me fall in love with you a third time. She laughed, pulled me down into her kiss, and we didn't stop touching until morning. We traveled that year.
We fought that year.
We loved harder than we ever had. And one night, a year to the day after our second wedding, she surprised me with a scrapbook. Inside were pictures, letters, Polaroids, stubs from concerts, napkins from restaurants. My favorite one was from our first trip after my memory returned. A photo of us in Paris. She had chocolate on her mouth. I was laughing. On the back, she'd written, "You never stopped being mine, even when you forgot. But I will never, ever let you forget again." And she didn't. Not with her mouth. Not with her hands. Not with her promises. We grew old like that.
Loud. Fierce.
In love. Until memory was no longer the measure of our story, only the echo of it. Thank you so much for your support, whether it's by liking, commenting, sharing, or sending your super thanks. You make all the difference here on the channel. See you in the next video.